Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lamenters. I was going to say something catchy about the new year and the optimism for the new year. But again, this is Lamentations of the Flame Princess. So you never know when people could just die or terrible things could happen. But we'll see. We'll see. So you guys left off after a day of a variety of activities. Bivoj and Sarah took a day trip across the lake and ultimately were able to find Bivoj's sister Kazi and her husband Yetri, and learned a lot about what had happened with Bivoj's family and what was going on with the Empire in the Borderlands and the occupation and all that stuff. Liber was able to go to a church for the first time in his recent memory and was able to meet Brother Malijah and learn more about what was going on with the church and the Empire and the differences in the various parts of the Borderlands. Claude had met up with his old friend from the militia of Lee County, Elwig, who is now a captain, the Daywatch captain in Aigner, and was able to also learn quite a bit of information about what was going on in the northern part of the Borderlands with Aigner and Lee County, and as well had discovered that the former Lord Trenton Lee, had passed away of old age and had been now replaced by his son, Lord Trevor Lee. Oldrad had done some stuff, basically had chased down the Steiners because they had left, and after a long jog had caught up with Steiner himself and learned quite a bit from Steiner about some things. Bane went shopping and met Ron, the tailor, and is excited to pick up 3 outfits for himself tomorrow. And a bunch of other stuff that you guys had kind of uncovered and investigated as well. So we pick up where we left off. You guys had returned to the Grey Mare Inn for supper. You were sitting down. Claude's friend Elwig came by in plain clothes and had given you a warning that a woman named Katerina had been inquiring about you guys specifically, that she was traveling with another woman and 2 men, and that they had gone into his office and had claimed that they were looking for their friends who had gone missing. She had described all of you in accurate detail, with even details like what you were wearing and the weapons you had and so forth. Elwig warned you about this and had mentioned also that he heard from other members of the constables that they had been asking around town about you guys. What he did not know was like if they were still in town or where they were staying in town. So that is where we will pick up. You guys have just finished your supper, and the innkeeper has, kind of cleaned up all the plates and dishes and all that stuff.
Sir, innkeeper?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a pretty good healer in town that I can see? I kind of hold up my hand.
He says,
It's
well,
wrapped.
there's an apothecary, and she's on the north side of town, a small green roof cottage. I'm not sure if she would be open at this time. Usually she closes around supper time. But, if you're a believer in the one true God, you could go to the church, and I believe that there's always an attendant on hand. If the head priest, Brother Malijah, is not available, I'm sure if it's an urgent matter that someone could summon him.
Okay, thank you.
Before we go and do anything, I think we should go back to the room. I think we should have some conversation that maybe some other ears cannot hear.
Okay. So you guys have a row of rooms. So you go up to one of the rooms.
Let's go to Liber's room.
Liber's room. that sounds
Maybe
good.
he can cast a zone of silence.
If only. All right, so you guys go up to Liber's room. It's a bit crowded because it's a small room, kind of made for two people, but you manage to jam yourselves in. Some standing room only situations with some of the larger fellows.
No problem.
And you are all in Liber's room.
So as part of my trip to the church, I gained some background information about what's going on, and I'd also like to fill you in a little bit of my past, because I haven't told you everything, and some of what I may say is blasphemous. And the priest at the church, Brother Malaysia, had warned me to be careful about what we say. There's a group of Inquisitioners, the Red Crescent, and they say there's ears everywhere, so we must be careful about what we talk in public. As you know, I'm a brother of the one true God, but I grew up under the traditions of the old gods of my family, not far from in the borderlands. So I know that there's power in the old gods, but I know that not everything I'd learned was true. I went in seeking the truth, and when I found the one true God, I knew that there was truth there as well. Although I've always been slightly distrustful of the power of the church itself, I've never really known what was true and what was not. I do know there's power in both. But what Brother Malaysia has told me raised some of my concerns. When I heard the storms and I heard the purple sky, my first inkling was that there was magic involved. And he said that he did believe that the storms are created possibly by either believers of the old god or people trying to make use of it and form the not so holy empire. But this does look like this was done on purpose, and it was to form this empire. And whether it's the old gods or the new gods behind it, I don't know if we know who we can trust, but I think we have to be careful of what we say and where we say it. And that there's definitely a lot more going on than we think that might be going on. That this is definitely done on purpose, and that there's danger afoot.
If this is by the will of old gods and it's masked as the teaching of one true God, which of the old gods is signed up for this? Like, there is many of them. I know that it may be blasphemous to you, but I grew up in the faith of old gods as well, and I know you will think of me as the heretic, but I still worship the old gods of life and death and of the nature. But which of the old gods could do this?
And now is the perfect time for some of you to make a roll. Those of you who grew up with the old gods, I want you to make a percentile roll. And I'm not going to tell you whether you need to roll low or high. But I need you to make a percentile roll. And I will go around and ask each of you what you rolled and determine what you then know.
And listening to stories from my crazy aunt once in a while doesn't count, right?
No.
Okay. Just wanted to verify that.
And this is a degrees of success. All right, Liber, what was your percentile roll?
21.
21. And you're within range. Okay. That is going to be a success. Bivoj.
11.
Percentile. You got an 11 out of 100?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's going to be a success. Oldrad.
81.
That is not a success.
Didn't think so after those 2 reactions.
Claude, I don't believe you would have rolled this, nor Sarah. Bane, I'm going to have you roll percentile.
.008.
That's 8.
8%.
That is a success, despite your extraordinarily low intelligence and wisdom. All right, by degree. Bivoj, as you are talking about this, and after Liber had shared this, Bivoj, you have a flash of insight. Some might call this Satori, a divine insight almost, if you will. Recollections about the old gods. You might want to take some notes because I won't be recapping this for you. Bivoj, your family lived and worked on the water quite a bit, didn't they? The river was important to their way of life. You are fairly certain that the old god that they venerated was a good god, a god of water, a male god associated with male attributes. But like water could take many forms, whether that be a small trickle, a gentle rain, a river, or a raging storm, or the great and mighty seas that exist in the ocean. That god of water could be both life-giving, but also quite dangerous. Liber, your family primarily did what as a way of living?
I think they worked the land, I'd say, for the most part, like farmers and that kind of.
Okay. You are certain that they venerated a female goddess of the earth, a goddess which was associated not just with the earth, but with birth and rebirth. A goddess of life, a good goddess, a goddess of fertility and health. One of the reasons that you strived to become a priest was, in a manner of speaking, to heal, whether spiritually healing people who needed support or physically healing them of ailments and injuries and disease. And you're certain that your family venerated a goddess of earth. You also remember your family venerating a god of the winds, because the wind and the weather was instrumental and connected to the yield of your crops. And you remember this being sort of secondary to the goddess of earth, but also important. And there's some memory in your childhood of working the fields and walking through the plowed fields with your father, and your mother tossing seed out, and your mother saying a name. And the name that she said was venerating this god of the winds. But you can't remember the name. Bane. You don't remember very much of the time before, and not just because of the strange memory loss that has afflicted all of you. Your instincts tell you that you've blocked out more of your life because some terrible things happened, some of which you have glimpses and memories of, but which you almost don't even want to know about. But in your mind, you remember not just you, but others praying to a male god. And you don't think it was like a good god necessarily, but like a god that you were praying to so that bad things didn't happen. You felt like this was a male god associated with battle, war, and with death. The kind of god that you would pray to for inspiration and success in battle, but also that you might pray to not die that day on the battlefield. For some reason, you remember this god. You remember feeling empowered by this old god in battle, almost like he granted you a sense of heroism and battle prowess. But you also resent this god because you feel like there was one time where you prayed that he would spare the lives of people important to you, and he didn't. He took those lives. So you remember this, but it's kind of a bittersweet memory because you feel betrayed by this god.
Do I know his name?
You were very close to knowing his name. You were the closest to knowing the name.
And on the other hand, it could be that the one true God, now this sounds blasphemous too, okay, in my family, we sometimes played both sides against the other. I mean, it's good business sometimes. Espionage, whatever. But it could be that perhaps some adherents in the empire, not necessarily the priests, could be blaming things on one party that are in fact the doing of another party.
Liber, what Sarah just said for some reason resonates with you. The Western church that you remember, that you applied yourself to, and where you did your studies to become a priest, was not a warlike church. You don't remember them having any sort of inclination towards dominating and occupying, other lands and kind of forcing their faith on everyone. Now, that said, the Church of the One True God, whether Western or Eastern, has always been monolithic. And that the adherence to that, and even in the book of the One True God, which you have read, you know that the teachings were laid out such that there are no other gods but the one true God. I forgot, do you have a copy of the book of the One True God?
I believe I did, yes.
So then you would know
copy of the book.
that, well, given your knowledge and studies as a priest, you would know that in the history of the faith that there was a time before the establishment of the faith. You would know that the prophet, essentially, of the faith of the one true God was a mysterious figure from centuries ago called the Oracle. And that the Oracle was the one that brought the teachings of the one true God to the people of Doreguteon.
I would like to try saying a prayer to both the old and new gods, with whoever will join me, for wisdom and insight and guidance.
Ooh.
Can you do that?
You know, I in these times, I don't know what's true. I don't know what's real, but I know that there's power in both, and I don't know what the interaction is. And I think that maybe they're both right and both wrong, these teachings. And will anyone join me in this?
Put
Okay.
too much faith in these
I just-
gods.
At this
Fear.
point, I have to cut into Oldrad.
Yep.
You've been engaged in this conversation.
Yes.
What did your family do prior to the storms, like when you were growing up?
I would say they were mostly solitary trappers.
People
Kind of
who
lived
live-
out
lived
in
off
the
the land.
wilds. Yeah, that type of deal.
Okay.
Harsh environments, you know.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to. How many of you are going to try to participate in this collective prayer? I'm going to have to do a little math.
I need to express to Liber that perhaps if he did this together, that there may be a consequence for the miracles he performs. Perhaps it would be best to find an adherent of the old god to pray with him, and that he not do both sides at once. I mean, if we can find someone like that, that would be great, but I don't know who we can trust.
I can do that.
Uh,
It'll be stupid, but
Are
we
you a
can try.
priest? We need a
No.
priest.
Well, good luck with searching for one.
Oh,
In this
Oldrad's
time.
gonna get up. I gotta go take a shit.
Hey,
Bye.
Oldrad goes out to the outhouse.
well,
Who is going to participate in the attempt at the collective prayer? Okay, so Claude, Bivoj, Liber. Claude.
maybe. Yes, I'll participate.
Or
I'm scared though.
Well, my belief is a bit shaky at the moment, so I believe
all right, I'm gonna
going for the
make
gods is
I'm gonna make one person do the roll. So Liber, you're kind of leading this prayer. You're gonna make a percentile roll, and I'm not gonna tell you high or low.
5.
0, 5.
Holy shit.
A
Wow.
little scary.
All right. You guys are gathered in this room. I want you to imagine a seance because it's nighttime and there's literally one candle in the room. The moonlight is coming through the window. That's it. Moonlight and one candle flickering. Liber kind of reaches out, and those of you who are participating are kind of hand in hand, circled. You're kind of listening. You've got your eyes closed. Those of you who are not participating, Oldrad left, Bane, you're just watching this like a group of people watching a Ouija board being played. Like you're just watching, right? But Bivoj, Claude, Sarah, and Liber all are in a circle, and they're like praying, and Liber is asking for insight. Liber, what specifically is your first question?
For knowledge to what's going on, to guidance as to what we're supposed to do.
as you are in this prayer, this deep trance, you get a sense in your mind that there are answers to your questions. But that you must go north. Bane, as the only person not in the circle, you're just kind of looking at these people. You see the candle on the nightstand flickering, and beyond it, you see the window. You're looking out this window, which you believe goes to the north. And you see a building about 3 stories tall. And at the apex of this building, at the top floor, you see a light turn on. Like you see like a window and there's curtains, but you see a light turn on.
Interesting.
As if somebody perhaps just lit a lantern. Bivoj, Claude, and Sarah, each one of you, in participating with this prayer, you feel like your understanding of truth is no longer a capital T. As if perhaps there is not but one truth, but more than one truths. And that it is impossible, no, that it is indeed possible. It's possible that there could be a one true God and old gods. That the old gods could be real. What you guys collectively don't necessarily know still is what is the relationship. Your instincts through this meditative prayer are that there are likely old gods, and that there is a one true God. But the relationship between those is what is still very unclear. And Oldrad, you are on your way back. You don't see any sign of what you were looking for.
Okay.
A few minutes later, after this prayer has passed, Liber, in addition to the insights that you gleaned from that prayer, your discernment is that you have free will. And that actually means something significant. It means that you are presented with choices. At this point after the prayer, to whom do you ascribe your ability, your divine magical abilities? Do you still ascribe that to blessings from the one true God?
Is it possible to ascribe it to my faith, my faith in the one true God, as well as my background in the old gods? That's from the combination.
Do you think it is?
I think it is.
Okay, that's where you're at then. Okay, so it's still early in the evening, you guys. Like, the sun has set. It's about 7 o'clock. You are all gathered in Liber's room still. what is your plan? What's your plan for your course of action?
It might be time to leave if we're being looked for.
Definitely time to leave. We should head north. I'm sure of it.
I agree.
I'm standing and staring out the window, like face in the window, still looking at the building or the still looking at the light.
Yeah, you guys see Bane looking out the window. And you
something?
see some, the rooftops of some smaller buildings. And then you see in the distance, maybe a couple blocks away, like a 3-story building, perhaps an inn like the one that you're in. And you see a light in the room on the top floor.
We should go now.
Is there a reason you're staring at that building?
Just seemed peculiar to me. I don't know why it caught my eye. But it's something very alluring about it, that's for sure.
I suppose it would occur to most of you that the direction in which this window faces is north.
It could be coincidence. I say this very uncertainly.
Maybe we
Father-
should go north then.
Father, I want to thank you for that prayer. I must confess that I was very frightened and unsure, and I took the teachings of the one through God not extremely seriously, kind of going through the motions, and I'm sorry about that. Now I feel more confident, and I'm less afraid of the interactions between the old gods and the one true God. And I smell like a donkey.
Well, you do know that they have the ability to make very nice
Yeah,
hot water baths.
I haven't had a chance to do that yet. So if we can wait to leave till tomorrow, to leave the town till tomorrow, I'd be up for that. I don't know where we're going though.
If we stay, we must be on high alert and watch. Someone has to take watch.
Yep.
They're indeed looking for us. We don't know how close they are.
I think we should check out this building before we do anything.
I'll go with you.
Anyone else coming?
I'll go.
Yeah, if we're heading out tomorrow, I might as well come along and maybe do some shopping for the trip. See if anyone is still open. You said you had a horse?
Did I say I had a horse?
Well, what are you?
A couple of you bought horses, but I don't know if you said that you bought a horse.
I'm pretty sure I didn't say that.
Well, one of you guys got a horse, but
It says so in the notes.
But did I say it out loud? I don't think so.
I smell horse on you, my friend.
I ran for hours yesterday. There ain't no horse smell on me.
So we don't know you have a horse, even though it was in the notes. Okay, fine.
Correct.
Good.
I think you did mention it, but
We all kind of went off on our own and
I
went
don't know.
shopping.
I don't think so.
Individually. So unless we said something, no one would know.
Yeah.
Like
Anyway.
I've got these fancy new clothes.
You gotta pick
Yeah,
'em
they
up
look
still.
good on you.
Don't you gotta pick them up tomorrow?
Yeah, I got to pick them up. Actually, tomorrow. I forgot it was still the same day.
Yeah, I need to pick up a few things tomorrow, so that sounds good.
Let's go on a recon mission and then see what's
Yeah.
out there, and then track our path. Figure out
Check
where
it
we
out.
need to go.
Let's check it out.
I'll stay here and just guard our stuff.
Okay,
Watch
so
for people coming and going.
am I correct in saying that everyone except Sarah is going to go check out that building?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, you guys head out from the inn. You start walking up the road, and a few blocks later, you come across an inn, the first floor of which has a fair amount of windows, and you see light inside. You see people, and it's a 3-story inn. You guys go in, and you see hanging above the door, you see a taxidermied crow, like mid-flight with its wings out. And when you enter, there's an innkeeper at a desk. He's a younger looking, fair-skinned man with kind of light brown hair. And he looks at you and he says, good evening. How are you doing tonight? Are you here for some food and drink, perhaps, or are you in need of rooms?
Food and drink for me, please.
A drink.
Make yourselves comfortable. The inn is just that way. And he gestures to an open doorway, and you can see the tavern inside with tables and a bar and people in there.
Is it also, can I inquire, is there any rooms available on the 3rd floor?
He says, unfortunately, the 3rd floor is the suite, and it is currently occupied. I do have rooms on the 2nd and 1st floor, though.
I think I'd like to reserve a room on the 2nd floor, as well as, can I ask who's in the 3rd floor?
He looks at you for a moment, and he says, I'm not familiar with the name. I'll have to look at my ledger. One moment, and you see he opens his ledger book, and he says, yes, a Mr. Andrew Guile, and he closes it. Make a wisdom roll under.
Under by 7, 18.
Yeah. So the thing is that you're not really that literate, so you couldn't really see the name that he looked at on the ledger, but you just have this instinct like maybe he's not telling the truth. Like he seemed very nervous and kind of closed the book very quickly.
So I want to pay for my room. How much would that room be?
A room on the 2nd floor is 3 silver pieces. A room on the 1st floor that is a shared is 1 silver piece per person with a maximum of 6.
So I want to give him 50 silver for the room on the 2nd, and just and if anything else comes to mind about the about Mr. Guile from the 3rd floor, if you just don't mind mentioning it to me.
Certainly. Can I bring you to a table, perhaps? I'll get your room ready and bring you the key momentarily. And he takes the coins and he puts them into a wooden lockbox, and then he walks into the inn, the tavern with you guys, and finds like a big long table with 8 chairs, and he seats you there, and he says, one of the servers will be with you momentarily. Thank you.
Did I catch that nervousness from the innkeeper as well?
You know what? You go ahead and make a wisdom roll under.
Okay. I matched my 18 wisdom.
He seemed a little bit nervous when Liber asked him about who was in the 3rd floor room.
When I catch that, I imagine Bane's a lot taller than Oldrad, even though Oldrad's not that small either. But he taps Bane on the shoulder so he can lean down and listen. I think it's our friends looking for us that could be on the 3rd floor. He seemed a bit nervous. I can't hear you. You're muted.
No, oops. I'm not muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Let me lean this way towards the microphone, I suppose. We'll have to check that out. Absolutely.
I agree.
Check out the 3rd floor.
Yes.
Claude, I'm going to have you make 2 rolls.
All right.
The first is a wisdom roll under.
Ouch.
Yes.
That's 3 against 6, so that's made it.
Okay, I should have said
Ooh.
I'm going to have you make 2 contingent rolls. So the first is a success. Now make an intelligence roll under.
That should have. No, that's 2 over. 13 against 11.
In the moment when the ledger book was open, you tried to sneak a peek, but like Bane's shoulder was in your way and he closed the book too fast. So you weren't able to read the name that was actually on there.
All right.
But you don't think that it started with an A. All right, you are seated at a table. A server comes over. You guys order drinks, presumably, since you just ate supper. She comes back later with some drinks. You drop her 4 silver pieces, and you all have ale, mead, or wine, whatever you want. You're sitting in this inn. And?
I want to see if I can catch the innkeeper alone again to see if I can have a nice chat, see if my 50 silver pieces has
Okay.
awoken
I
any
think-
memory.
His lips.
I think while Lieber's doing that, Oldrad taps Bane. Let's go check it out while Lieber's talking to him.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Well, since you're all going in the same direction, the 3 of you walk back out to the foyer, and the innkeeper's not at the desk.
Ooh.
He's upstairs.
Mhm.
Can I look
Stay-
behind the his like I'm assuming there's a desk.
Yes,
Can I look behind the desk? And
you see the
I'm
wooden
not looking-
lockbox, but you don't see the ledger book.
Okay, that I wasn't looking for that. I was looking for like maybe a knife or something.
No, there's no reason why a knife would be there.
Just checking. Maybe a bat. Okay, looking for
Okay.
a weapon.
I'm gonna look at them. I think we should get the others and head upstairs. I think we should
Okay.
check out the 3rd floor ourselves.
I think you should go grab him, my friend.
I do that. Bivoj, Claude, come on. We're gonna take a little trip.
Okay, so all of you are going upstairs. Everybody gets to the foyer. You're looking at the stairs, and you hear the stairs creaking from above, as if somebody perhaps is coming down.
Oh Lord.
Does it sound like a lot of someone's coming down?
Nope.
Or
Sounds like one set of feet walking down the stairs.
Let's wait for the innkeeper to arrive. He should be here shortly.
Moments later, the innkeeper turns around the banister and walks down. And he looks and sees all of you in the foyer, and he's like, and you see that he's carrying the ledger book. He says, I'm sorry, is there something amiss? I don't quite have your room ready yet, sir, but I will momentarily. We're just dusting and spiffing it up.
I'm
just gonna-
kind of flex a little bit.
He says, I'm sorry, it won't be but perhaps 10 minutes. I'll come get you when it's ready.
I'm gonna start
Perhaps
walking
I'll
up the
look
stairs.
around in the first place.
So Oldrad, you start to walk up the stairs, and he turns from the desk and he's like, "Sir, but I don't have the key to the room yet."
I just keep going.
And
I think,
you see he looks
I think-
very nervous.
I'm gonna say to them. I think we've paid for you to be quiet for a few minutes while we take a look around. Have a seat.
Yeah, very well. You see he is not comfortable. Like he looks very nervous, and he like pulls out a kerchief and like wipes his brow.
There's something you want us to know. I suggest now's the time you tell us.
And he looks at you, but you see his eyes keep darting over to Liber. And he says, I'm simply an innkeeper. I rent rooms to people who pay to stay at the inn.
I put a gold coin in front of him. Really?
Yes, sir, yes.
I put 2 gold coins in front of him.
Sir, I while I am deeply appreciative, I'm simply an innkeeper.
I feel that you are a true believer in the one true God, and that these lies are not becoming of you.
And you see he's looking at you. Go ahead and make a charisma roll under.
I take the coins back if he's not cooperating.
5 out of 11. So
He says, I am good father. I do believe in the one true God. That is true.
Then I grab him. Perhaps you want to meet him.
No, sir, please. I swear to you, I'm loyal to the one true God.
Who's on the 3rd floor? Speak now.
Just some folk who wanted to rent the suite. They are also believers in the one true God. This I swear. I swear on my very life and the life of my wife and children.
but I don't think it's Andrew Guile, was it?
Clearly.
Father, I must confess, you're right. I apologize. I made up that name. You see he's still clutching the ledger book.
Who can read?
Claude can.
Can you show the ledger to my friend here, gesturing to Claude?
He nods and he opens up the ledger book. And he opens it to the current date. And you see the list of rooms that are occupied. And you see a name written down. And it is not Andrew Guile. It is smash cut to Oldrad. Oldrad, you're up on the 3rd floor. And you get to the top, and at the landing there's a hallway, and it leads to one door. Which makes sense because he said it was a suite.
Right.
You could see light from underneath the crack, of the door at the bottom. What do you do?
I walk up to the door as quietly as I can, and I listen.
Make a wisdom roll under.
Okay. That's pretty good. 9 under my 18.
All right, you hear a voice say, you catch part of what this voice says. And you hear, it sounds like a male voice, and it says, if they're inquisitors, then why aren't they dressed in the garb? He said the priest looked like an ordinary priest. Well, perhaps they're in disguise, you hear another voice. It wouldn't be unlike them to be disguised, trying to root us out. You hear another voice, a female voice, say, I'm not so sure about that. It's possible that they could be sympathizers. And then you hear a voice that's familiar to you.
Mm-hmm.
One of us should go and see. And then the female voice says, well, I suppose I could go down and take a look at them, though I'm not entirely sure of what I should be looking for or who. And then you hear another male voice say, George will point them out in the tavern. Just go. Whistle if it's inquisitors. Okay, I will. And then you hear footsteps coming towards the door, Oldrad.
Does the door open in or out?
It opens into the room.
I'm gonna move down the past the door.
There is no past the door. I want you to imagine you come up the stairs to the 3rd floor. There's a short hallway that terminates in a door.
Oh, okay.
Because there's only
I'm
one
gonna-
door, because there's only one suite on the 3rd floor.
I'm gonna back up 10 feet, wait for the door to open.
Okay, so you're kind of by the stairs. You see
Yes.
the door open, and you're kind of peeking around, and you see a woman start to walk out. She looks like she's perhaps in her 40s.
Mm-hmm.
She has darker skin, like tan skin, like the kind of complexion that you might find from somebody from Hazadas or from Southport, with dark brown hair, and she's wearing kind of a colorful dress. And she opens the door and she starts walking down the hallway towards you, towards the stairs.
I step into view. Looking for me and my friends, are you?
She's like, oh, and she sees you and she's like, who are you? Why are you up here?
The innkeeper seemed a bit nervous about my group and I. And when we asked about the 3rd floor, he got really nervous. And that just led me to believe there was something suspicious up here, and here I am. I heard what you guys were saying in there.
She says, do you serve the Empire?
Never.
You hear the door open. And that is when you see a tan-skinned, middle-aged man who is bald with a crown of gray hair and a trim mustache and goatee, moderately well-dressed.
Mm-hmm.
You recognize him because he's
Yes.
holding an ornate pipe. And he looks out at the woman and you, and he says, I know him. And you, in fact, know him.
Yeah.
You recognize Piotr, the tobacconist.
Yeah.
And he says, Melania, invite them up. And she looks back and she says, Piotr, are you sure? And he says, I have a good feeling about him. He's the one I was telling you about earlier. And Piotr just smiles. And as he's smiling, kind of standing in the doorway, you see
Mhm.
2 other people walk up behind him looking out towards you. Another one
Perfect.
is a fair-skinned, middle-aged man with brown gray hair parted to the side and like a trim beard. He's also
Mhm.
well-dressed.
Yes.
Then you see a slightly younger guy, maybe in his 30s, fair skin, bald with a crown of brown hair, very stout. Like
Mhm.
his shirt is kind of almost busting at the seams, and he's looking out and he whispers something into the ear of the other man, and the other man whispers something back to him. And Piotr says, tell your friends to come up, but make sure no one follows you. Melania, tell George that it's okay for them to come up.
I head downstairs. I
She
assume
heads down.
Melania.
She heads down with you, and as you're walking down together, she says, "My name is Melania. What is your name?"
It's Oldrad.
Well met, Oldrad. I'm relieved that you are a friend.
I am as well.
Smash cut back to the ledger book, Claude. You see the name listed for the suite is Piotr.
That does not ring a bell because that wasn't mentioned.
It does not. A few moments later, you see Oldrad walking down the stairs with a woman. A woman in her 40s with dark brown hair, tan skin, brown eyes. Very nicely dressed in a colorful dress. And she looks down and you see the innkeeper look up like worried. And she says, George, it's all right. Piotr said that they can come up. And he's like, and he lets out a big sigh of relief and he says, oh, thank you. And he's just slumped in his chair. The woman looks down at you and she says, "Please, come up."
I drop 5 silver on the desktop for your troubles.
He just nods, like wiping the sweat off of his brow again.
I hand him back the ledger and maybe just trust some people for every now and then.
You guys follow her back up with Oldrad. You get up to the 3rd floor landing. The door is actually open. And you see a man smoking a pipe in the doorway. And he looks and sees Melania and Oldrad and says, and the rest of you, and he says, "Come in, please." And as you're entering, he says, you guys see two other men in a table with chairs, and they're kind of seated around this large room. This is the biggest room that you've seen in an inn. With the exception of maybe Sarah, like when you would stay in a fancier inn in Southport, this is truly a suite. After everybody enters, Piotr closes the door. And he says, "I suppose that introductions are in order." He says, "I am Piotr. I have a small tobacco and pipe shop just down the road from here." He says, "That is actually where I met your friend Oldrad." He says, "This is Melania. She is an herbalist and an apothecary." And she kind of does a curtsy to everyone. He says, "This is Ron, the tailor." And Bane, as you walked in, you immediately recognized Ron, the tailor. He's seated at the table. And when he saw you, there's a moment of recognition and a look of relief comes over his face.
Well met, indeed.
And he says, "And our distinguished guest." He says, "And this is where, before your introductions, I must assert that this is being led in the greatest of confidence. This is Dougal Durst, the mayor of Aigner." And the hefty man stands up and he says, "At your service," and he bows, and he kind of like twists his robust mustache tips, and then, sits back down, and the chair kind of creaks when he sits down. He's a big man. Not big like Bane. Like, he's like 5'10", but 300 pounds big. Piotr then looks to the rest of you and he says, "And now, would you like to introduce yourselves?" And he looks first to Liber.
I am Liber. I am a priest of the one true God who has made some interesting discoveries recently. But I think we'll get to those later in our conversation.
You notice everybody look relieved, almost, and then Piotr nods. And he looks to Bane.
Hello, I am Bane. All you must know is that I fight for what I believe is just, and I will not stop fighting. Once I was a butcher, a real butcher. Now, the only butchering I do is human flesh and whatever else gets in my way.
You notice that Piotr looks over to Ron, and Ron nods. Piotr then gestures to Claude.
Yeah, I'm Claude, and me and Critter are former Lee County guards.
Wait, who did you say?
Critter, my dog.
Oh, okay.
He's up here.
Okay, so they nod. And you notice that the mayor looks to you and he says, "Former," he says, when did you serve Lee County?"
I served there up until 2019, 11, 10, 19, 10, 20.
You mean
11?
11.
Yeah, 11.
They look at you and they look at each other and they're like, that's not possible. You would have had to have been a boy.
We'll get to that later, maybe.
You see they are obviously like confused by this. Piotr then looks to Oldrad and he says, "And you, good sir?"
Camping, like this time I've been getting my pipe ready and all that. It's good to see you again, my friend. My name is Oldrad. I am, and I look around at my fellow companions. I look at these people. I am a priest of the old gods.
And for a moment, that just lingers in the air in the room. just simmering in the air.
I light my pipe and take a good drag.
And you notice that there are looks amongst all of the people in the room. Bane, how do you react to this revelation?
I find it rather amusing.
Claude, how do you react to Oldrad's revelation?
Somewhat stunned.
Liber?
I am shocked, but surprisingly happy, given our previous experience.
Bivoj?
Glad. I would say glad. That I'm not the only one that's weird here. According to the teachings of the one true God.
It is a moment, a long pause of silence before Piotr takes a pipe puff and then looks to Bivoj and he says, "And who are you, sir?"
Well, I'm the son of the woodcutter, and right now I'm the muscle for hire. So, also the friend of all those people.
You,
We share the predicament.
His name's B-Boy, by the way.
Bivoj, woodcutter.
I'm not very smart, but I'm doing my best.
He says, "And where are you from?"
Well, a long time ago, my family lived in the Three Rivers.
When you say that, you notice Piotr look over to Ron. And Ron, his eyes kind of open a little wider. And then Ron says, "What's your family name, boy?"
Well, I have to look it up if I have had the name for the family.
What was your father's name? Or what is your father's name?
My father was...
You know what? He says, "What was your father's name?"
My father was Sudivoj. He lived in Three Rivers as the woodcutter. A long, long time ago. He died when the storms came.
All of you make a wisdom roll under.
Even me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Son of a bitch.
Under 11 or 18.
4 under 6. I don't know what, man.
That was wisdom, you said?
Wisdom.
Nope.
I drink more often, man.
Where is
I
my
drink,
dice?
I get pretty smart.
All right.
That's
Raise your hand if you succeeded.
that's a natural 20 for Oldrad.
All right. Liber and Bane. You noticed a very subtle exchange of glances between Ron and Piotr after Bivoj mentioned his father's name and where he was from. Piotr says, well, now that we're all introduced, you are likely wondering why we have gathered here, and perhaps why we have done so with discretion. He says, we represent a much larger group that opposes imperial expansion. The sovereignty that once existed in the borderlands has been gradually threatened, and it would now seem that the Empire seeks to move further north, and Aigner would be its next target. Mayor Dougal has been in a very precarious position. Politically, he cannot oppose the Empire, should the Empire decide to stage an occupation of Aigner. And he has very tactfully, to his credit, been able to avoid that by providing tithes to the Empire, as well as resources from Aigner at a much reduced cost to avoid occupation. But it would seem that while this was a temporary solution, in the long term, it will not satisfy the nearly endless thirst for land and power that the Empire seeks. We have had allies who have provided us with information from all across the borderlands, and even from the west. But there is cause for concern, as our informants have also notified us of patrols that have gone further north by both road and river, Imperial patrols, and even some talk of Imperial encampments being established on the eastern side of the river and the lake. He says, the first rebellion in the borderlands was after the fall of Southport. And among the first fighters to stand up to the occupation forces of the Empire were in Three Rivers. And he looks to Ron, and Ron nods at this, and he says, I lived in Three Rivers. I had a small tailor shop there. When the first Imperial forces came to Three Rivers, I was one of the few men, along with a group of woodcutters, who were willing to risk our lives and our families' livelihoods to oppose and sabotage the occupations. We were successful for a time, until the Red Crescent came. The Inquisitors rooted out all of our members, capturing or killing most of us. Those of us who were able to escape before being captured moved north, for a time to Oak Point, and then eventually to Aigner. Some moved further north to Lee Castle and Lee County. He says, but the Inquisitors became aware through torture of those that they had captured, of the members of our rebellion. He says, my name is not actually wrong, but it is a name and an identity that I have taken on since moving to Aigner to avoid Imperial detection. Oftentimes, the Crescent will send in scouts to ascertain who might be rebel sympathizers or who might be themselves rebels. Some of our members have had to flee this area for that very reason. Piotr then speaks up and he says, I was very impressed with you, Oldrad, when we met. You have a certain open-mindedness to you that I believed could be valuable to our cause. But I wasn't quite sure what to make of you yet. As Ron had mentioned, oftentimes spies and scouts will be sent ahead prior to the Inquisitors. They have become very clever over the years. So it's difficult to ascertain who we can trust.
Speaking of spies, there could be a group of them here in town right now. One of them, a female, goes by the name Katarina. We met them at the inn at the Soldier's Rest. They've been looking around for our group.
Ron speaks up and he says, did you say the Soldier's Rest?
Yes, that's where we came from.
The establishment owned by Griswold?
That's correct.
And again, you see Ron look over at Piotr.
Please don't tell me that that place was shut down years ago.
No, to the contrary.
Oh, that's a relief.
Griswold is a sympathizer to the rebellion. While he is no longer active for the safety of his family, we use that location as a drop point for information. It's also a safe house for refugees seeking to avoid the Empire. Griswold is an old ally.
We know it's a safe house. We escorted a family from there.
Piotr says, you did?
Yes, he's already on his way out. He's gone.
And you see they all kind of look at each other and they said, who? Who was it?
His name was Steiner.
They look mystified. Like, Piotr's like, I've not heard of this person.
We escorted him, his wife, and 2 children from the Soldier's Rest. They were fleeing north.
He sabotaged the keep of the soldiers.
He was a former Empire soldier who defected from his story.
Ah, I see. Well then, you've done a good deed, to be certain. If Griswold trusted this Steiner person, then we would likely have trusted him as well. But you say he was heading north.
As a matter of fact, he headed north today. It took a lot of effort, but I had wanted to speak with him, so I had to run north out the north gate for hours to catch up to him and speak with him.
I wonder to what end.
Why he was going north?
Yes. Does he seek refuge in Lee County?
He seeks a monk that I was told about from him that is showing refugees a way to, I forget the name of the place, but through the mountains to a safe refuge.
He says,
He didn't give me the monk's name, but he did tell me he was a monk.
interesting. Interesting indeed. He says, well, what then has brought you here? If you are not loyal to the Empire, Where do
My-
your loyalties lie?
My friends here and I, we have a bit of a lapse in memory, if you will. Myself, I remember the great storms and marching among a bunch of people to somewhere I don't remember, but that's where my memory leaves me. And then after much information gathering, it seems 14 years have passed when I awoke with my companions here. And we've been together for, I think, a week, going through the forest and other tribulations. And we finally found ourselves here.
And looking at Oldrad specifically, and I say, I do not feel that we've been here or brought together by accident. I feel this is the will of the gods. And I say it that way, the gods, not just any other.
At this explanation, you see Melania grow wide-eyed. You see she looks at Ron and Piotr and at Dougal, and she says, "We have heard of something like this happening. But we weren't sure what to make of it."
Well, remember that I said that I came from Lee Castle from 1119, 1120.
Yes.
That's what we were about. We're still trying to figure things out, but it seems like some force or old or new god may have taken us through the storm and deposited us here 14 years later, unchanged. That's why I look this young for having served back then.
Ron then speaks up and he says, "When I was in Oak Point, there were two men, two soldiers, who came through about 4 years ago. They spoke of a similar tale, a tale of memory lapse. They spoke of remembering fragments of the storms, but after that, seemingly awoke in the forests. They believed that they had been part of a force, a military force perhaps, they could not recall, that had been marching towards a destination. And it was during a storm at night. They said that they could not remember why they were part of this force or precisely what they were intending to do. But both of these men were certain that they were going towards some tower.
This sounds familiar.
Well,
Very similar to our story.
That
Some of the others
definitely
have-
piqued my interest.
Been referring to a tower as well.
When I met
also,
them in Oak Point, they claimed that they had awoken in the forest with the loss of what had happened or how they'd gotten there. And upon leaving the forest, they came across some farmers who they had assisted, who had been raided by some of the low people. And then they came to the town of Oak Point. And in speaking with them in my shop at the time, they revealed these things. At the time, I'd never heard of anything like this. I had assumed that perhaps it was some fiction, but I remember their story vividly, and I shared it with the rest of my allies. These two men, these two soldiers, their names were Ajax and Wotan. They sought to somehow recapture their lost memories, to find out what had happened. But their passage of time was not apparently the same as yours, for they emerged from the forest and came to Oak Point in 1130. So for some reason, their passage of time had only been 10 years.
Maybe they were just closer to the tower when the things happened. I don't know.
There was definitely magic that was causing these storms, and this is my belief that this is what brought around the Empire, and I think this is what we were there to stop. I think that's what this force was for.
They all kind of linger on this thought. You see Piotr kind of just contemplating this, puffing on his pipe. Ron is kind of lost in thought.
There may have been some grand ritual that we were trying to stop. There was a coalition of forces. I know from the accounts that everyone's talked about, we were all in different areas, but we all kept seeing different nations or counties with different soldiers.
You see Melania then kind of look up at you, and she says, and she kind of at all of you, and she says, over the years in my studies of herbalism and apothecary, I have come across some of the old teachings, things passed down from family to family, oftentimes rural folk who still venerated the old gods. She says, I believe it is possible that perhaps at one time the old gods granted knowledge of the mystical and magical, and that perhaps there were folk who could understand those secrets and were capable of arcane things. She says, but those are tales, folklore. I know of no such folk who are able to wield magical power without the blessings of the one true God. She says, there are some who venerated the old gods, who I believe were invested with blessings of the old gods, that were able to manipulate things. But that was through the divine favor of the old gods.
I believe it was actually a prayer that we said to the old and the new gods before we came here that led us to you. At that time is when our friend Bane here noticed your light. I do believe this is the power of the gods bringing us together, and not just the new or the old, but both.
She says, that is an interesting revelation. She says, I, in all of my years, have only learned the name, the true name of one of the old gods. And that is the Mother Goddess.
What was her name?
She was known as Peshwick. Oldrad,
Yes.
Bivoj, and Liber make intelligence roll-unders.
God dang it. Intelligence.
Dummies.
Yep.
507,
I missed it.
dude.
Missed it by one. I have 6 intel and I rolled a 7.
What's my
Missed it by a lot.
I have 2, so it means 4 under.
Okay, so Bivoj and Bane. You feel like what Melania has just shared, a name of one of the old true gods, somehow resonates in you. Not like you knew that name, but perhaps it was part of a prayer. Like a word, like a vocabulary word that you somehow like hear from your childhood as part of a prayer, like someone else saying it. But a name that you perhaps have never uttered from your own lips.
Can you say the name one more time?
Peshwick.
Okay, I got it.
She
Is
says,
that name?
Melania
Sorry,
says
go ahead.
from time to time, I have prayed to Peshwick. Sometimes I feel like perhaps my prayers were answered in the course of divinations about certain things. Being able to find very rare herbs and plants, for example, that would help me. And being granted the discernment and knowledge for how to prepare certain plants and barks, roots and herbs to make tonics, tinctures and potions. Things that could cure and heal or alleviate pain. She says, I can't say for certain that I understand exactly how all of this works, other than to say sometimes when I'm off on my own in the woods looking for things, sometimes I feel like my prayers are answered and I find what I am meant to find.
Oldrad looks around the room at his companions and looks for any of them that are visibly hurt. Is anyone below their max HP? Is
Yes.
the meta way?
Bane is still below his max HP. Bivoj is still below his max HP.
Bane, could you give me your hand, please, or show me your wounds? I can see you're injured. Oldrad puts the pipe in the corner of his mouth and he looks it over and starts to pray to the old gods. And he casts Cure Light Wounds on Bane, which I believe is
in
a
your
D6.
prayer. In your prayer, do you specifically invoke any name? The name of Peshwick.
I do invoke Peshwick, since now that's like the first name of an old god that he has now.
Okay.
So,
I want you first, before you roll how much you've healed.
yeah.
I want you first to make a percentile roll.
Percentile, got it. Ooh, this is gonna be a good one. 5.
Like 0.5?
Yeah, I rolled a 0, then a 5. Finally, a good roll.
Okay,
Been rolling like crap.
Here's what happens. You see Oldrad begin to like pray, kind of like in a low whisper. You see him extend his hand to the wound on Bane's arm. And then you see a soft golden glow begin to come around his hand. Bane, you are completely healed.
What?
I have healed you.
That was amazing. I thought that gods only craved blood, not the return of blood.
No, friend.
Not all the gods.
Oldrad,
Thanks.
you've done your curing before, but it has never manifested like this.
Yeah, even anyone looking at Oldrad sees a look of shock and wonder at how much he's done.
Oldrad, to what do you attribute this?
I attribute this to, I say out loud, I attribute this new power to the goddess Peshwick. It's since I've awoken, I haven't been able to remember any of the old gods' names, and it's been really eating at my core, and finally I've learned one of many.
You see awe. The expression on everyone's face is awe. You see Melania is also in awe, but you see a great smile come over her.
And I guess I'm reminded the first step is faith. You must have it.
This proves it. You have seen me pray to the one true God, and we've seen similar miracles. This is a very powerful one here, as a prayer to the old gods. And I mean, I've seen the work of the old gods as a child, but this shows there's something going on. There's both the old gods and the new gods. There's truth in both, and I think we must root it out to find out what's going on here.
I agree.
All of you, culturally, become very conscious of something. You become conscious of the fact that what just happened, what Oldrad just did, if that had been witnessed in public, would have been an absolute death sentence. It is the highest form of heresy and blasphemy. And even what Liber just said could be construed in the wrong crowd as blasphemous.
You should all keep this to yourselves. Don't speak of this outside this room.
Piotr nods deeply. He says, yes. He says, what we have just beheld, I agree with the priest, is a manifestation of truths which perhaps we cannot even define here, but certainly must be kept with the utmost discretion. And he takes a few more puffs off of his pipe.
How can we aid the cause? I fear a head-on combat would be not as fruitful as we'd like it to be. But if we can take out legs of their operation, perhaps their travel routes, perhaps the way they send weapons and materials, then we could maybe make a dent and start there.
At this, the Mayor Dougal actually speaks up and he says, he looks at Ron and Piotr and Melania, and they all kind of nod. And he says, we received a missive. I received a missive from Lord Trevor Lee. He indicated that some of his scouts that had gone west of Lee County had discovered very troubling news. It would appear that there may be a horde of low people amassing to the west of Lee County.
Oh, shit.
He says, raids from low people upon the more rural folk is not uncommon. But a horde has not been seen in quite some time. He says, if it is true, this threat could pose a much greater problem. He says, if Lee County must defend themselves against an attack from a horde, That would be it would create a severe weakness, an opportunity for the Empire to move forward. If Lee County has to recall their soldiers from Aigner, that would leave us virtually defenseless.
We had discussed going to Lee County as anyway. This sounds like it might be a promising lead.
I wonder if the horde is being directed. That is a fear of mine.
Just to be sure, how much is the horde?
He says, Mayor Dougal says, well, it's difficult to say. The missive did not include numbers, but typically, if the low people amass in a horde, it could be hundreds. Or, in the case of the rise of the Ordur hordes, back in the decade beginning this century, there were multiple tribes that had amassed. Their total numbers were in the thousands.
And Bivoj is visibly counting on the fingers, and
those of
that's
you,
a lot.
those of you from the Borderlands only, go ahead and make a intelligence roll under.
Does that include Drontov?
No. Drontov, no.
Okay, yeah.
Any successes?
I got another 2. So
Okay.
it means four under.
Bivoj, you're not the most well-read person, but you do remember a time. I'm trying to think if you would actually remember this.
Maybe from
Yeah,
the tales
so
of my
Bivoj,
dad.
you're 34, so you would actually remember this from your childhood. You remember a time where there was a great threat to the Borderlands for almost like 10 years. In the late 1090s to the early 1100s, there were hordes of low people led by the Ordur who were raiding all along the Borderlands. And some of those raids took the form of like sieges on towns. And it was a terrible time. It was a terrible war. And Mayor Dougal says, but that was 30 some years ago. We have not seen a horde amass in that time. Certainly not since 1107. So quite some time ago.
Yeah, I remember that only as a child. Those were trying times, my dad always said.
The mayor twists his mustache ends and he says, if this were true, if there is indeed some horde amassing to the west, it would create a great distraction of the soldiers of Lee County. To defend their lands, they would likely have to withdraw their militia from Aigner. I would, if you are up to it, ask you to deliver my response to Lord Trevor. And then, pending his decision, assist him as needed. This is a perilous task, of course, but an urgent one.
I pledge my blade.
We're heading north, nonetheless, so it won't hurt.
I think this is a worthy cause.
We can do this.
And from the moment of sudden clarity, Bivoj turns to Ron. You are talking about the rebellion of the woodcutters. Have you known my dad? Just by a chance.
Ron says, I came to know your father, Sudavoy. He was an honorable man who was willing to fight and risk his life for his family. He says, I cannot speak to what ultimately happened. I know that your sister and brother-in-law were able to escape, but your father was one of the many who were captured. I cannot say whether he yet lives. And I cannot, unfortunately, tell you the whereabouts of your sister or brother-in-law. I only know that they fled upriver, and that was many years ago.
It would be nice to meet them during our travels. Yeah. I wonder how they are faring in these trying times. Thank you.
At this, the mayor says, it would likely be faster for you to go by road. He says, do all of you have horses?
I have purchased a horse.
He says, those of you who do not, I will inquire about horses for you if you are able to purchase them at a discounted rate. I think that is perhaps the best I can do to avoid detecting too much attention. He says,
How do we get our weapons from the south gate back up to the north gate?
minor note, yours are at the west gate.
West gate, sorry.
He says, when you leave town, you will have to go out the gate where your weapons are deposited. He says, I would say that perhaps Mr. James, who owns a stable as well as a ranch just outside of town, he could probably provide you with horses at a discounted rate. He's not loyal to the Empire, but he is also not part of our coterie, if you will. So I cannot exactly commission that he provide you with horses for free.
I don't think money is really a big issue for us, so shouldn't be a problem even paying regular price.
Very well.
I will much appreciate the lower rate.
Of course, but
Maybe a small discount.
we don't have to go out of their way and tip our hands or anything.
Ron, I'm wondering when I can come pick up my fine new garments.
Ron says, I will gather my assistants and work on them tonight. They will be ready in the morning for you before you depart. The mayor then says, I too will draft a missive for you to deliver and seal it. If you would be so kind as to come to my office on the morrow, I shall leave the missive for you with the Director of Courier Services, Mr. Cordero.
given that some old acquaintances have been looking for us, I think maybe for the night we should move to this inn and drop some false leads as to where we're actually heading.
Fyodor nods. He says, yes, it is paramount that you are not discovered to be working for Mayor Dougal. Fyodor says, you have another inn that you're staying at?
The Gray something.
The Grey Mare.
Gray Mare.
Why don't a few of you return, gather all of your belongings, and come here? You can stay in the suite tonight. We will take our leave, and in the morrow, gather what you need and head out for Lee Castle.
It's a good plan.
Yep.
Although I think I'll also keep my room on the second floor, and maybe one or two of us stay down there, just in case anything happens in the night.
Yes, perhaps this is best. The group of them stand up. Fyodor says, he looks at all of you and he says, it is fortuitous that we have met. Whether that blessing comes from the one true God or the old gods, I cannot yet say for myself. But I believe that our goals are in alignment. He says, I am not certain that we will see each other again, but I hope that should you make your way through Aigner again, that you will find us as friends. And he does like a polite bow. The mayor stands and he says, on the morrow then, and he starts heading to the door with Fyodor. Ron gives you a polite bow as well. And as they're walking out, Melania, following, curtsies to all of you. And then she walks over to Oldrad and takes him by the hand. And she says, I pray to Peshwick that your road will be safe. Hold to your faith, friend. The old gods still hear our prayers. And she smiles politely.
Oldrad nods. Thanks, sir.
And the four of them take their leave. A few of you guys go back to the old Grey Mare Inn, and I'm assuming you update Sarah and Havardr about what has transpired.
Yes.
You gather your stuff, and you head out. Go ahead.
I want to whisper. So is the apothecary lady still there?
She left.
Okay,
What's
I'll see her
wrong?
in the morning. I'm worried about this hand. I'll see her in the morning. I have to buy rations anyway.
Okay.
I don't want to talk. So.
I let the innkeeper know that we're leaving town to give that false lead.
Okay. He's surprised and he says, well, I'm certainly glad to have had you here, and you're welcome back anytime. Thank you so much. And you attribute his kindness to the extraordinarily generous tips that Bivoj has left repeatedly.
Yes.
And then you guys head out. You get back to the Crooked Crow, and Liber, in the meantime, you already paid for your second floor rooms. George, the innkeeper, gives you the key for the second floor rooms. And when you guys all get back, you kind of split up between the second floor and the third floor suite. In the morning, you wake up. Bane, you go over to the tailor's and you see that he has 3 fine outfits for you. He has put them into a cloth bag with a sling so that you could sling it over your shoulder. He shakes your hand once again. Claude and Oldrad, you go to Heinrich James's stables, and you inquire about horses, presumably. Mr. James is pleased to see you again, Oldrad, and he says, so you're buying more of my horses. Most excellent, he says. Are we looking for war horses, good sir, or just some light horses?
I'll take a war horse.
So your costs, after some friendly negotiations, you were able to acquire the warhorse. He won't cut you a deal on the warhorse because it's a warhorse. So that's 500 silver. The riding horses for everyone else, he'll do for 100 silver each. So those of you buying riding horses, add that to your sheet and mark off 100 silver.
So what about...
That's including gear?
Yeah.
Yes, he's throwing in the saddles and the bit and bridle and the blankets at cost.
Fodder?
Yeah, he'll give you each a saddle bag of feed.
Go back for 1
1,
second. I
2,
wanted to do
3,
two things
4.
before we went to bed.
Yes.
I wanted to, before we took that last night at the Minnow Inn, I wanted to try to perform light cure on Sarah cure light wounds on Sarah, as well as take a bath that evening.
I don't have any loss of hit points. I'm just worried about infection.
You are infection free.
Okay,
Actually, Sarah, you're at 24 of 36. So
okay.
Go ahead and roll your healing cure light wounds. No, not you, Liber.
Okay.
Liber, to whom are you praying for this? Are you venerating the one true God for your healing?
I am actually going to, from now on, try to do both the old gods and the new gods. I'm going to start with Peshuik and the new god. That's the one I know now. And the one true god.
Hedging your bets, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and make a percentile roll.
$55.
You perform the prayer in the way that you have done many times, but for some reason this time it doesn't work.
No.
In narrative terms, we call this a crisis of faith, everybody. All right. All of you have a full night of rest. You wake up the next morning. You buy horses, right? Everybody minus off their silver for the horses. Somebody minus off an extra 100 silver for Havardr's horse.
I'll take that.
Okay.
Do I get my 2 hit points back overnight?
Each one of you get 2 more hit points.
Okay, cool.
Ooh,
And I
25
need-
for 35.
And I need to buy rations, so I'll just take that out of the book.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to be replenishing my arrow stock as well. Although...
All
I
right.
have it sent to the West Gate.
So, you guys gather all your stuff. You get your horses. Bane, you picked up your 3 sets of nice clothes, and then you go to the West Gate with your wooden chips that have a number on them, and you check out at the gate, and you get your weapons, and they open. Actually, the gates are open because it's daytime. You get your weapons, you ride out the West Gate. You circle around town, right? Because you're going to go to the North Road. And you're circling around town. You see the sturdy wooden palisades circling the big town of Aigner. You make your way, you get to the North Road. You see some farmers with carts like heading into town. Kind of what you'd expect. Start making your way along the North Road, and you get about a half mile outside of the town. To your east, you see kind of the lake and the river, the Nargan River, and you're heading along the North Road, and you see the woods to your west. And a few hundred yards up ahead, you see like smoke, what looks like maybe from a campfire, just off the road.
Let's just leave it.
That reminds me, Oldrad. Have you
Yes.
got my special?
What?
Have you got the special from the pipe guy?
Oh, Oldrad chuckles. I indeed do, and I hand him that cheap pipe and the special.
We should
Oh.
probably avoid the camp.
Thank you.
In case there's
Thank you
any
so
noise.
much. Yeah, we should hurry.
So
We should.
avoiding what you see as the campfire would involve going off the road and into the woods.
Oh, cripes. Okay.
Let us hurry. We don't have too much time.
So you're going off road?
I think
Yeah.
we should if everybody agrees.
I'd say no side quest and just straight to
Yeah. Let's
straight
go.
to leave.
Let's get on.
Okay, how far into the woods, how far west are you going to circle around this and avoid it? Like, give me an approximation in yards or meters.
about 100, 150 yards.
I would say 100.
Okay,
I would say about 100 meters.
so you go west
Thing.
into the forest. You manage to find like a deer path where it's kind of sparse, where you can lead your horses. You're going single file through there. None of you have bushcraft, right?
I don't even think
Actually-
Leonard does either.
I think Leonard does. So I'm going to roll
he
for
does?
Leonard. Yeah.
Yeah, Leonard does.
All right, I rolled for Leonard. You guys go west into the woods for what you think is, 100 to 150 yards, meters west, and then you start circling north.
Okay.
And you're traveling. You go about 100 or so meters to the north. And you hear a voice call out. It's a female voice. And it says, "That's right about far enough, fuckers." And that is where we'll end this episode of the Lamenters, everybody. Happy New Year. We'll see you on the next one.
Well, hello, and welcome to Blayne Allen World. I am Wizzy, the Wizard. I'm back once again to remind you to subscribe and click on the notifications button, and also watch videos that are over there. tune in to the next episode of whatever show you are just watching and watch other shows featuring Bill. He made me say that because he's a narcissist. Okay, bye.